As injuries continue to pile up, how concerned should we be about the depth and overall roster health for our Denver Nuggets? And what is standing most firmly in the way of the Denver Broncos making a legitimate Super Bowl run in 2025? Those will be the subject of today's rundown. Thank you so much for joining us. While you're here, do us a favor. Like and subscribe to our Denver Sports 1043 The Fan YouTube channel. You can find us at Denver Sports 1043 on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. And if you're watching us on X or on Facebook here on our live broadcast, we love you. We appreciate you. Feel free to like, share, comment so we can interact with you during the broadcast and afterwards. And subscribe to those post notifications so that you never miss a moment with us. Plenty to get into today, starting with the reaction to the unfortunate Denver Nuggets loss to the Dallas Mavericks last night. And if we're going to talk Nuggets, there's no one better to bring in than our regular friend of the show, Jake Shapiro, Denver sports analyst for denversports.com. Jake, you were in the building last night for what ultimately ended up being a disappointing outing in a micro sense, losing to a Dallas Mavericks team that on paper you probably should have beaten. And then also you add in a potential injury situation with Jamal Murray to compound the other two injured starters for the Nuggets starting five that began the season. What was your biggest takeaway from the loss against Dallas last night?
The big D, the Denver Nuggets do not have that. That is the problem, Richie. The best offense in the NBA, the Denver Nuggets, went toe-to-toe in a shootout with the worst offense in the NBA, the Dallas Mavericks, and lost because their defense is truly that bad. And David Adelman said it best last night. If you give guys confidence in the NBA and turn it to a pickup game, everyone's going to be able to score. It doesn't matter who. So that's the problem, Richie. And it's to no surprise that the Nuggets are struggling on defense without Christian Brown and Aaron Gordon. And then their offense falls apart down the stretch in that game because Jamal Murray is not there to steward the last few minutes of the game. And now you're wondering, well, are the Denver Nuggets going to be down three starters for an extended stretch? So in a micro sense, for the next few weeks, dang, this defense is bad. But it might be an offensive issue and a big problem overall if Jamal Murray is missing time as well.
You alluded to David Adelman's comments after the game, and he did, in fact, have a pretty pointed reason as to why and why not the Nuggets struggled against the Mavericks. Take a listen.
I don't think it was effort as much tonight. I thought, we got up and down with them. We were scoring at a rapid rate. I thought our defense in the first quarter was really good. The activity. Start the second, though, we're not physical enough right now. And I think the stat that'll kind of stands out to me is only 11 personal fouls. That says you're not putting your hands on people, and they're running free. And they did. And Nembhard had a career night. He's a young guy. A flag got going. And I thought it was a 2-point shots that killed us early and then 3-point shots later.
There's a short-term impact, Jake, and a long-term impact, and there's certainly multiple factors that come into some of the struggles that we've seen from the Denver Nuggets, who now have lost their fourth straight home game and have given up about 130 points a game in those four losses. So, Jake, how much of the lack of physicality and the lack of toughness that David Adelman was alluding to there is because of the fact that you're missing arguably one of your best, if not your best perimeter defender in Christian Brown alongside, an interior presence like Aaron Gordon? Is it really kind of stemming down to the fact that you're missing those two players, or is this more of a symptom of a systemic issue and maybe a mentality issue that the Nuggets have in 2025?
So there's about 30 different takeaways, at least from my inside basketball perspective from that exact quote. One, you could hear the ambient noise of the Dallas Mavericks celebrating in the background of that quote, because that's how much that win meant to them and their young guys. Cooper Flagg, who was awesome, a rookie in that game. Ryan Nembhard, a rookie on a two-way contract, has 28 points in that game. Richie, Nuggets defense. Ryan Nembhard scored 28 points or more once in college. He was there for 4 years. That's how bad the Nuggets defense was. In his ninth NBA game, he scored 28 points. This is really bad. Really, really bad. And David Adelman's going to blame effort. And that's cool. And I get it, because there is an effort problem. There's something systemic that even when Aaron Gordon and Christian Brown are back, this defense is not going to be good enough. Of course, those two guys not being there is big. And it has down the line effects that I think no one really realizes. I actually talked to Spencer Jones about this last night. Spencer Jones is really out there to come in, give energy, play hard defense, and then check out in 5 minutes. That's why he's playing. Well, last night, Spencer Jones scored 28 points because Spencer Jones now is one of the more important Nuggets players. He is starting his, order in the pecking totem pole, so to speak,
Yes.
pecking order. All of these terms have gone up.
Somewhere in there, it was there.
Yes. So Spencer can't just go out there, play physical and aggressive because they need his offense. So in a game where he would normally just be out there fouling people, being aggressive, the thing that David Adelman wants, he can't really do, because if he is out of that game, Richie, who are the Nuggets going to at shooting guard?
Right.
They can go to Tim Hardaway Jr. for sure. After that, Jalen Pickett is not a shooting guard. He's already not playing instead of Jamal Murray. You've got Julian Strother already out. You've got Christian Brown already out. There's no one to play. So you can't play that aggressive thing that David Adelman is craving. So that's part of the problem, is the whole Nuggets system, at least for their defense in the regular season, is built off aggressiveness, physicality, and effort. And they really can't do those things right now because of the limitations of who is injured and how that affects the rest of their roster. But I will also tell you, last night was the first time I had the intrusive thought of maybe David Adelman is not the guy. And I'm not there yet. It was an intrusive thought because what we saw from Adelman in the first few weeks of the season was very impressive. But in the last couple of weeks, some of the in-game management decisions have been bad, frankly. They've just been bad. And you've now had multiple home games in a row where you're claiming effort is an issue. Whose job is it to get effort out of their players, especially when there are multiple days of rest going into those games? This is an issue, systemic, and it comes back to coaching, although it has a lot to do with personnel available right now.
We had that conversation, Jake, to your point, when Michael Malone was the head coach, and he would blast the players on the podium, or he would rage timeout and kind of stomp his feet and maybe get ejected during a game. And he would lament the effort of the starting five, especially because of how heavy they were relied upon. And we would have the same response. Okay, well, yeah, players have to go make plays, and you have to take it upon yourself with a personal, professional responsibility. But whose job is it to foster that effort and that enthusiasm? Who's responsible for lighting that fire? And ultimately, I believe you are correct. I agree with you. It comes down to the head coach. So I guess, Jake, my follow-up question would be, what do you need to see beyond maybe just like an uptick in success from the team, from maybe David Adelman specifically, that would help those intrusive thoughts stay at bay as we get past the quarter pole of the NBA season?
Well, they've got 12 of their next 17 on the road. And some Nuggets fans are going to hate the comment. Some are going to realize it's a joke. But David Adelman was kind of right last night in saying, hey, that's kind of a good thing for us because we're playing great on the road and we're not playing good at home. Mm-hmm. We got to fix that. But we don't really have to worry about that too much during this stretch. Spencer Jones talked to me last night after the game and said, hey, we get confident early on in these games. We go up more than 12 points, which we've done in 19 of our 20 games so far.
Wow.
It's insane. No one does that. But then it turns into arrogance, and we let our foot off the gas. And at home, we just kind of expect that we're going to win. On the road, we know it's harder. And that's one of the reasons why I think, and I can't speak for everyone, why we're locked in. That's essentially what Spencer Jones said. I thought it was a really brilliant piece of analysis from a guy who went to Stanford.
I think that's great in terms of a piece of analysis, Jake, but I have to be honest, it does surprise me a little bit that mentality would be coming from a team like the Nuggets, who are assembled with such a heavy veteran presence, who have known what it takes to climb that mountaintop, as they did just a handful of years ago for the first time in franchise history, and have frankly been on the receiving end of some ass whoopings in the playoffs that kept them short of repeating and or reaching that mountaintop sooner. So that actually surprises me that there would be a little bit of an arrogant or laissez-faire or lackadaisical approach to any home road situation, given how much is at stake and how difficult this team has proven that it is to get there.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you, Richie. I can't push back on that. All I can tell you is it's December in the NBA. It's early. There are almost 10 games in the positive on five, above 500. They were down 3 starters in the second half last night. But the other thing too, no one really wants to talk about it, is just the league has gotten a lot better. Like the Dallas Mavericks are one of the most bum teams in the league. They've got one of the top 75 players in NBA history scoring 30 points and the #1 pick on their team. And they've also got Klay Thompson, this is a really good team. So, and they're one of the worst teams in the league. So that's part of it. Like there's no nights off in the NBA, truly. And the Nuggets are running into a lot of these bad teams early, which is good and bad. Like they can get fat and go above 500 like this early on, but they're playing these teams when they're still trying. Whereas if they were playing these bum teams in March, they may have quit by now, and it would be an easier situation. So yeah, that's part of the problem. But going back to your question about what do I need to see out of these next 17 games, I would love to see the Nuggets just go 10-7. And like, that's not that extreme of an ask. Sure. But we're looking at these next 17 games. And if I were just to do the math, I have no inside information on this, but just where these guys are in terms of their timeline, I would expect Aaron Gordon and Christian Brown to miss probably 12 to 15 of those 17 games, if not all 17. Jamal Murray is probably going to miss some of these games now, and you're going to put a heavy, heavy burden on Nikola Jokic. So if they can find a way to go above 500 by a couple games in this stretch, end up in mid-January at 24 and 13 or whatever that the math is on that, I think that's a pretty good stretch. But you saw last night, the number 2 seed is probably completely out of play the way things are going. And the number 1 seed certainly is in the West, the way the Oklahoma City Thunder are. So you're going to end up in a situation where you're going to do some seed manipulation, or you're going to have to get hot at the end to avoid the Oklahoma City Thunder the way this is going. And we're in December, Richie, and we're talking about this. So this is not a positive conversation. It changed a lot in the last 2 weeks with the Denver Nuggets.
Wow, that's a strong stance. So I'm going to re-rack the second half of your answer there, because I want you to be able to maybe elaborate or expand on it kind of exclusively. Jake, based on the results of last night with the injury situation that the Nuggets currently have in front of them, obviously Christian Brown and Aaron Gordon are missing some significant time. There's a reevaluation, I think, slated for right around the new year. And now Jamal Murray, with him not returning in the second half and his timetable a little bit uncertain as of this very moment. You are of the mind that a race that was already for second place may now be a lot harder to attain than it was before in the Western Conference.
I think the Denver Nuggets are the second best team in the NBA, to be clear. Like, I truly believe that. And based off what we saw with the starting 5 early on in the season when everyone was healthy, it showed that is true. The race for second place in the Western Conference, which is what the Denver Nuggets are basically going after all year long, is going to be an uphill battle now. I thought they were in the driver's seat coming into the season, early on in the season, the way they were playing, that win in Houston 10 days ago. Like, it all sensed like they were in the driver's seat for this number 2 seed, kind of like the Broncos right now for the 1 seed in the AFC, right? It was in their control. After this 6-week stretch and what's going to happen with these injuries, it's going to be an uphill battle. I'm not saying it's unachievable. I think the Denver Nuggets can get the number 2 seed, but it's going to be hard to get now based off what's happened within their season so far. And these games all go in the standings. Like, it doesn't feel like it early on here, but these games all affect you in the standings later on. So the Denver Nuggets are really going to have to catch fire in January, February, or March when these guys are healthy. And guess what? It's going to be behind Nikola Jokic, who's probably pretty tired because of what he's going to have to do here in the month of December.
No, again, I know it's an 82-game regular season, and we always talk about, especially when you've got a team that you know is a perennial playoff presence and somebody that you think has legitimate title aspirations. There's, I think, a tendency mentally, both as a media conglomerate, as a fan base, or even, as a group of players or coaches, to say, it's one of 82. We can't overthink it and overread it. But I mean, you alluded to it. These games matter early, late, depending on how the dice fall. Because, Jake, it was a loss against a lowly San Antonio Spurs team that prevented the Nuggets from breaking a tie for the number 1 overall seed, which forced them to have to play the Oklahoma City Thunder in the second round instead of avoiding them on the complete other side of the bracket. So one game literally can make the difference in the entire trajectory of a team's postseason.
So the Champagny brothers deserve a special place in Denver Nuggets lore and Nuggets or Denver sports lore. Yasiel Puig's here, a couple guys are here, just Denver killers, the Champagny brothers. And they did it again. One of the Champagny brothers on Black Friday did it again. But as you said, Richie, one game can change everything. literally every single team in the Western Conference and in talking to people around the league, every single team in the Western Conference is rooting for the Denver Nuggets to end up with the 4 seed so that they run into the Oklahoma City Thunder in the second round like they did last year. It would be the biggest break for teams like Minnesota, the Lakers, maybe even Phoenix to like just get into the Western Conference Finals, because everyone knows that they have no chance at the Western Conference Finals except for maybe Houston unless the Nuggets end up with the 4 or 5 seed.
Yeah, it's going to be a fascinating thing to kind of keep track of. And it is a situation where, it feels like a season that started off with just an immense amount of momentum, praise, hype, and admiration for the offseason moves from Ben Tenzer and Jonathan Wallace to amass this veteran depth that Jokic has particularly been starved for so much of his ascension into what he's become today. And now I think there's a lot of questions. I heard it on our own station earlier today with Mike Evans and others talking about, well, why should we be all that concerned? What about all this quality depth that we brought in? And it's like, okay, well, that it was brought in to be quality depth.
It was supposed to be supplemental, not relying.
Correct.
And by the way, the depth that they brought him in brought them from the worst bench in the league to about average.
Yeah.
So now that you're dipping into it for your starting lineup, it's not good. And again, Spencer Jones, who has been great. No, this is no criticism of Spencer Jones. Spencer Jones had to score 30 points last night for the Denver Nuggets to have a chance against a bad Dallas team at home.
To lose by 10.
He's undrafted. He's a two-way player.
And even
the Nuggets need him.
Even the vaunted Oklahoma City Thunder, who are running 10+ deep in a postseason rotation, if they were missing 3 quality starting players in their starting 5, the dynamic of their team would change.
Richie, they're like 18 and they're like 18 and 1, I think, right now. Jalen Williams barely has played, and AJ Mitchell now is like making an all-star case. Like it's absurd. They're the only team in the league that statement you just made is not true to.
If there was going to be an exception, it would be them. They have a multitude of first-round picks and stuff coming up in the next handful of years. Like they're still growing.
They have the Clippers pick in a draft that has 3 generational players. They could easily end up with a top 3 pick in a generational player draft.
I want to shift gears quickly here, Jake, to the Denver Broncos, who had a brief stay once again at the top of the AFC, but because New England has a game in hand and they'll get it back after this coming week with the bye, they currently sit as the number 2 seed in the AFC. But as a team and a unit that has put themselves in the position that they have, a position that I'll be frank, and I've raised my hands multiple times, where I said I didn't anticipate the Broncos getting to this point. But the fact is, Jake, they're here now. And I think, and I've kind of phrased it as with new information comes new and updated evaluation, right? You have to use your eyes to judge. Just because we didn't think the Broncos would be, a runaway favorite for the division and the odds-on favorite to win the Super Bowl back in August doesn't mean that we have to change the evaluation now, because they are literally both of those things. And so quickly here, as it's time to hit the turn, presented by the Birdie Bar, Louisville's premier indoor golf bar. Check them out online and on Instagram at thebirdie.bar. Jake, there's a lot of conversation locally, nationally, surrounding the Denver Broncos and whether or not they're believable, right? That whether or not the adage that says you are what your record says you are applies to the orange and blue. And I think the majority of it is centered around a faith or lack thereof in Bo Nix and his ability to lead a true championship contender. And I think I will preface what I'm about to say with this. There's justification in some aspects to that. Bo Nix in quarters 1 through 3 is not always Bo Nix in quarter 4. There are games where it's put together. I actually think this game against the Washington Commanders, Bo Nix put together a pretty solid fourth quarter, and obviously opening up the overtime drive with a critical touchdown drive was huge, and it set the entire tone of that period. The Cowboys game, it was put together for basically 4 quarters. The Bengals game, outside of the Bengals being the first to get on the scoreboard, the Broncos ran away with that one because the Bengals were just in really, really rough shape with Jake Browning at that point. But by and large, it's really had to come through these ugly, grimy, gritty, fight through the mud situations where in the fourth quarter, they just happened to have fresher and stronger legs than the opponent to kind of go the distance. But I'm going to say it, Jake. I don't have blind faith in and confidence in the fact that the Denver Broncos can win a Super Bowl in 2025. And if they fall short in the playoffs, the reasons why will be everything that we've discussed up to this point. The Bo Nix, Jekyll and Hyde situation didn't fall in their favor. They fell too far behind to come back. The run game without J.K. Dobbins was not able to supplement that high level of production, and it made them too imbalanced to beat the top-tier competition in the AFC and the NFL if they were to make it to the Super Bowl. All of those things and roadblocks will be valid if that's where it goes. But what I'm now saying, Jake, up to this point, I'm kind of throwing my hands up and saying, I'm not 100% sure why anyone would doubt that the Broncos can do it. Whether or not they will is to be determined. But Jake, they've won 8 one-score games in 10 tries. They've won in almost every way, whether it's Will Lutz's leg has to carry the load, the run game early in the season with J.K. Dobbins, Bo Nix putting the team on his back in a fourth quarter situation against lowly teams like they did last year and against higher quality competition, which is a new thing for this year. Jake, I think that this team has developed a genuine belief and identity within themselves that says, we know we're not out of it. That defense, which is a championship caliber defense to me, seems to think if we can keep this game close enough, Bo's going to go win it for us. And more often than not this season, outside of 2 walk-off losses in the first 3 weeks, they've been right. Am I crazy for kind of throwing my hands up and saying, okay, I think there's been enough evidence on paper that says there's believability with this Broncos team?
Yeah, can I poke at this defense and just ask you real quick?
Yeah.
The defense has been really good, as we know. No one's disputing that. But they've kind of fallen apart a couple different times, and we've seen this last year late in the season, especially when Riley Moss went down. Washington with Marcus Mariota scored 26 scored 26 points. The Chiefs, we know, only scored 19. You go back to the Cowboys game, that's 24. The Texans had Davis Mills for the second half. They struggled, but the Giants scored points. The Eagles had a decent game. The Chargers had a decent game. The Colts had a decent game. I don't know if they were just on the field too much against Washington because they were on the field for 85 plus plays. But late in that game, I wasn't really fearful of the Denver defense. And that same thing happened against the Chiefs where it was like, if they're getting the ball here in the second half, they're scoring. And I don't know if it was fatigue or like they figured it out, but like I'm a little bit worried about the defense, Richie. I'm going to be honest about it.
That worry, Jake, is justified in a sense of it was this time last year. It was the turn of the calendar into December last year where we saw, largely in part because of an injury to Riley Moss, and then he rushed back against the Bengals and had the T. Higgins experience just blow up in his face. But we did see the defense go from one of the best statistical units in the league for the first 3 months of a season to the worst defense in the league by several metrics in the month of December. So the turn of the calendar and an apprehension that comes with that, I think is valid and is real. We will see, and it remains to be seen whether or not that happens for this 2025 Broncos squad. But I also want to say this, because I saw a narrative going around after the Sunday Night Football game, and there was a conversation of, did the Broncos win or did they escape? Or a question for the defensive side of the ball was, did Washington just provide the blueprint on how to beat the Broncos defense? And my answer, Jake, would be either a flat out no or a yeah, but. And the reason why is because, yes, Marcus Mariota and Washington had success moving the ball against the Broncos. I thought Marcus Mariota played a very good game. He got a lot of respect and credit from several Broncos players and coaches after the game. He's an 11-year vet, and I actually don't remember seeing him move as well as he did in that Sunday Night Football game, in and out of the pocket.
He looked like he did at Oregon when he won a Heisman.
Yes. I thought he moved really well. He bought time with his legs, and he made high-quality throws, especially in some critical situations. They converted on a handful. I think they converted on a 3rd and 21 late in the game.
Well, it was 3rd and 25, and they got like 21 yards. And then they had that 4th down play. Like
that's what it was.
He was
and he would have had another. They would have had another 3rd and long conversion if it wasn't for Alex Singleton peanut punching the ball out in what was a good game for him. But where I was going with that was, yes, Washington moved the ball well through the air and on the ground with kind of a committee-style approach at running back against the Broncos defense. But the reasons why, especially their success through the air, which I think helped set up the run a little bit by softening the front, is not rocket science or unique to Washington. Marcus Mariota was getting the ball out of his hands at about 2 seconds in the pocket, unless he extended it intentionally with his legs. So I think any team offensively that's going up against an NFL defense is going to have multiple goals in mind. We want to move the football on the ground, and we want to get rid of the ball quickly. That, to me, is not endemic to Washington, Jake. They just happen to do it in that specific game well, but we've watched plenty of NFL offenses headed by a multitude of different quarterbacks, all of which are better than Marcus Mariota, to be frank, do that exact same thing with success. So did Washington provide the blueprint? No. I actually just think they dusted off the blueprint that most NFL teams try to do, either successfully or unsuccessfully.
Yeah. Richie, and the Raiders suck, and they're going through a horrible season.
Yeah.
And they haven't won since early October. But what are the two things they can do? They can run the ball with Ashton Genty, and they can throw quick passes with Geno Smith. So we're going to see this theory tested this week. I mean, I think it's, the stupidest version of testing this theory because the team sucks.
Yeah.
But still, we're going to see it tested a little bit. But we're now questioning the identity of this defense, which is the identity of this team and how strong their defense really is. While at the exact same time as I don't know what the offensive identity of this team is without J.K. Dobbins. Like, they just kind of are lackluster. And you said Bo Nix was good in the 4th quarter. Dang, man, he threw one of the worst interceptions I've ever seen early on in that 4th quarter.
Right. Bad throw, but I don't think that overshadows the whole. Yeah.
They needed a first down like 2 different times, and they couldn't get it to just win the game and not have it go to overtime. So that offense, like, Bo Nix has been really good in coming from behind or playing tied this year. Bo Nix has been horrible with the lead this year.
With the lead.
Like, horrible. And that's what the Broncos are really struggling with, because they just used to give it to J.K. Dobbins when they had the lead. And clearly RJ Harvey isn't ready. And RJ Harvey has moments when he looks like, wow, Sean Payton found a hidden gem. And then RJ Harvey has moments where it's like, wow, Jake Shapiro was right. He was the best running back in the Big 12
he averaged under 3 yards a carry for the game. And if you take out his long run of 11, which I think might have come in the first handful of carries of the game, he was averaging barely 2 yards per carry. It clearly is a drop-off that they have not found a way to replicate with Jaleel, Bidet, or RJ Harvey as a unit since J.K. Dobbins has left the picture. And that brings up a perfect opportunity to ask you our weekly poll question, which is, do the Denver Broncos, in your mind, Jake Shapiro, need to add another body to that running back room before the start of the postseason if they want to have any aspiration of getting to that point? You can vote on our poll on YouTube or on X at Denver Sports 1043. Jake, where do you come down?
How's Phil doing? Like, can we get him over there? Like, is any former running back working a cell phone stand at the Cherry Creek Mall?
Correct.
Like, can we get anyone? Like, yes, they need somebody.
I interact with Philip Lindsay every single day here at the station, and I don't know that he's necessarily in fighting shape in terms of NFL terms, but I bet you he could get you 2 yards a carry. So I don't think he would be worse, maybe.
And he ain't gonna fumble.
Yeah, that's true. He ain't gonna fumble. I want to make sure I touch on one thing here, Jake, because I thought there was a pretty poignant response from Bo Nix after the game. He was asked by our guy, 9 News Insider, Mike Kliss, friend of the station, about his thoughts on the team's ability to kind of establish and show resilience, to never feel like they're out of it, echoing some of the comments from players on the defensive side of the ball. And here's what he had to say.
Well, I was told a long time ago by one of my many offensive coaches that pressure is a privilege, and not many people get to be in that opportunity. So if it's going to be me who gets this opportunity, I'm going to make the best of it. And it doesn't always go your way. Fortunately for us, it's gone our way in these games. But last year, we were on the opposite end of these close ones. And so I understand what it's like to be on the other side of things. But you just got to keep moving on, and you got to have a belief that you're just going to find a way. And, didn't look great there for a minute, but we just found a way to make the next best play. And, at the end of the day, score one more point than they did. And that's the difference in the game in this league. It's every game comes down to the last possession pretty much. And so you just have to, kind of accept the fact and just put yourself in that moment.
Richie, real quick. He talks about how every game comes down to one score and whatever. New York Giants against the Denver Broncos came down to one score. The New York Giants against the New England Patriots, who are fighting for that top seed last night, that did not come down to one score. Yeah. And that's some of the things I see as a difference is some of these other teams are handling business and blowing teams out. And that's why the Patriots point differential is plus 100 or something. Right. And then a team like the Broncos is like plus 30. I don't know the exact number.
Yeah, no, you're right. There is a difference in terms of like, you react and respond to the situation you find yourself in. And the Broncos, outside of a handful of games this year, the Cowboys and the Bengals really exclusively, have not found themselves in a position where they are in blowout territory and they're nursing or defending a pretty significant lead. It is kind of a 12-round fight for the Broncos most of the time. And I think a lot of that was predicated early on by some disjointed nature offensively, even with J.K. Dobbins, as they it felt like they were trying to jumpstart the car. And it was turning over, dying. And they just had to keep kind of waiting for that engine to kick in. And we saw it in those limited moments against some bad defenses or bad team situations with the Bengals. But again, Jake, taking some moments and some comments from Bo Nix's response there, they have a belief in themselves that they can dig their way out of holes, that they have the resilience and a championship pedigree to be able to know we can control our own fate and destiny if we just take care of our business and focus on the next play, the next drive, the next score, whatever it is. And to tie in something Sean Payton said, it's not a false belief. They've put on paper that they are the antithesis. They are the mirror image of the 2024 Denver Broncos with a rookie Bo Nix who couldn't win a one-score game to save their life. Now it is almost a rarity that they find themselves in that situation, and both of their one-score losses came with 0 seconds on the fourth quarter clock. So again, I'll just say the reasons why the Denver Broncos won't make a Super Bowl run and or win a Super Bowl this year in 2025 are valid and they're documented. We have talked about them ad nauseum. Inconsistency from Bo Nix and by extension, the offense. The absence of J.K. Dobbins not being able to be replicated by R.J. Harvey, Tyler Bidet, and Jaleel McLaughlin. A overall lower than average or lower than expected level of talent at the skill player position on offense. We've got a lot more drops than we're used to for certain players. Evan Ingram had a good game against the Commanders, but there's been kind of a milk carton situation with him at stretches during this season. Or that the defense, which has played at a championship caliber level for good stretches of this season, isn't able to finally shoulder all of that burden all the way through a postseason gauntlet against the best the AFC and NFL have to offer. All of that is noted and valid and true. But, Jake, I am kind of at a point where I have run out of reasons to say the Broncos definitively can't do it. May not. It will remain to be seen. But, Jake, the belief that these guys have in themselves and the way that that belief has transpired and been applied in real game situations that have led to them being a 1A, 1B essential seed in the AFC has me throwing my hands up to say, you know what? They may not do it, But the biggest thing standing in their way is honestly themselves. And that makes me feel like there's certainly a chance that they very well could.
So the Denver Nuggets yesterday in their game had a mentality issue where they've lost a couple games at home with a giant lead. We talked about it early on in the show. And they realized the train was coming and they couldn't do anything about it because they've been in that situation and they were just like, I guess this is happening to us. The Denver Broncos are the opposite with their mentality right now. And it does matter that they're able to fight back through these things and fight their way through a game. Like, those are the two differences we saw with the Denver Broncos on Sunday and the Denver Nuggets yesterday. But Richie, when you have what's going on with the Denver Broncos, which is they are playing poker or let's just call it blackjack. They're playing blackjack with these one-score games. They're holding at 19, which is what you should be doing. They're holding at 19, and they're winning. But eventually, the dealer's going to get 21. Is the dealer going to get 21 and it's going to cost them the 1 seed? Or is the dealer going to get 21 and it's going to cost them the AFC title? I don't know when it's coming, but it's coming. That one of these teams is actually going to be better than the Denver Broncos because they've got 21, and the Denver Broncos are holding 19, which is what they've been doing all year.
No, I think that's a good analogy because 19 is good enough to beat basically every hand outside of a couple. The Broncos have only had a couple of losses this season, and they are entering a stretch where one regular season loss could tip the scale from a seeding perspective. And obviously one postseason loss sends you home and waiting for next year. Jake, thank you so much for joining us today. Appreciate all of your insight and everything you do at denversports.com for the Buffs, the Nuggets, the Broncos, the Rockies when called upon. And so many other things.
Hey man, it's like 2012 again for football with the Broncos going at the Patriots. Maybe the Rockies can get back to where they were back then.
That's right.
That's right. 90 games instead of 120. So
exactly. Hey, baby steps, right? The road to 90 is better than the road to 100. Jake, thank you so much for your time. We'll catch up with you again soon.
See you, buddy.
See ya. To the rest of you out there, have a wonderful rest of your afternoon. Make sure you like and subscribe to our Denver Sports 104.3 The Fan YouTube channel, at Denver Sports 104.3 on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. You know where to find us, at DEN Sports 104.3 on Facebook and on X. We love you. We appreciate you. Send me some notes in the comments. I'll respond to them as soon as I can. And until then, we will catch you tomorrow at noon for the next rundown.
I do what I love what I do. Second nature to put in the work.